Father O'Connor, I have the honor to present to you and to our graduates the President of Nativity Preparatory School of Wilmington, Delaware, an apostolate of the Philadelphia-Wilmington province of the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales. A solid education has been an essential component of the American dream since the founding of the Republic. It is seen as one of the best supports for a happy and productive life. Oftentimes, this commitment to education is enveloped by a deep religious faith that impels believers to seek understanding for their faith and for their moral lives. Some of the early immigrants built schools for the religious and secular education of their children. In fact, the 6 centers of higher education in the Lehigh Valley were all founded by both secular and religious impulses. Many of the inner city communities of America are now in crisis. For various reasons, the sense of a tight-knit community has been replaced by isolation, unemployment, and desperation. As always, religious people are seeking to respond to this reality by creating newer forms of education for the young. The Oblates of St. Francis de Sales were incorporated into the city of Wilmington, Delaware, and established our first high school, Salesianum School, over 100 years ago. 12 years ago, the Oblates established the Nativity Preparatory School for Wilmington, one of over 60 Nativity model schools across the country. Students spend 10 hours per day in 5th through 8th grades. The staff of the school then placed the students in some of the best high schools in Wilmington and continue to provide support for the students through high school and college. Salesianum High School accepts several students each year. DeSales University has established an endowment fund so that several of the students can also continue their education within the Oblate tradition. This year, the first student to complete all 4 years at DeSales University through the resources of the Bernard F. Donahue OSFS endowment funds will be graduated. Today, we honor the President of Nativity Preparatory School of Wilmington, Delaware, Mr. David J. Kubacki. He has spent the majority of his adult life working with disadvantaged students in nativity schools across the country. He serves as a vivid example of Christian humanism in action. Father O'Connor, I now ask you to confer the honorary degree, Doctor of Humane Letters, upon this compassionate humanist, a true follower of St. Francis de Sales, dedicated builder of the city of the future, and an esteemed colleague within the Oblate educational mission.
Mr. David Kubacki, President of Nativity Preparatory School in Wilmington, dedicated educator of the youth, compassionate and courageous builder of community, witness to the gospel, promoter of Salesian spirituality. In recognition of your faithful service to the young of our nation, your stellar witness of compassion for the marginalized within our communities, and your living announcement of the beauty of Salesian spirituality, by the authority granted by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and with the authorization of our Board of Trustees, I confer upon you the honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters. In witness whereof, I now present you with this diploma and direct that you be invested with the insignia appropriate to that degree.
Good morning. DeSales University trustees, administration, faculty and staff, parents, families, friends, and most importantly, the graduating class of 2015. Thank you for having me here today to celebrate with you. When Father O'Connor first invited me to be your commencement speaker, I was in awe to be considered for such an honor. As I thought about the message I would share, it occurred to me that I had no idea who gave the commencement speech at my college graduation in 1996. What chance did I stand to be remembered by any of you in a decade or two? So I decided it would come down to sharing a message and advice that would stick with you after the excitement of receiving your degrees today. I was invited here because I'm the president of Nativity Preparatory School of Wilmington. Nativity Prep and the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales helped me realize that working with Nativity's young men isn't just my career, it's my calling. Many of the young men, whom I've known since they were 10 years old and are now in college, in fact, as was mentioned earlier, one of those young men is sitting with the graduates today, that many of these young men have changed my life even more than I have changed their lives. About 5 years ago, we created a program for Nativity alums across the country as they transitioned from college to career. The program was called Backpack to Briefcase, and I borrow that title from my remarks today, so that in 20 years, when you can't recall who gave your commencement speech, perhaps you'll recall the Backpack to Briefcase theme. For the transition from college to career is not an easy one. You will be challenged. You will have doubts. Some days you will feel empowered, and other days you'll quite frankly be freaking out a little, or even a lot. But you'll always fondly remember these past years at DeSales University as some of the most important of your life. Also, I realize that very few people actually use a briefcase anymore, but stick with me, it's a metaphor, all right? So, when I talk to parents, donors, volunteers, people interested in Nativity Prep, I tell them that I want our young men to succeed and graduate from college, have a career, and become a positive statistic rather than a negative one. But secretly, that's not why I want Nativity graduates to go to college. I want them to choose this path because of the amazing personal growth they will achieve by taking advantage of a college education, a college experience. It's life-changing to have the opportunity to have what you have experienced for these past 4 years, to live on a college campus or commute to one, to have an ivory tower where you can make lifelong friends, explore ideas, form opinions, have your worldview challenged and expanded as you grow into adulthood, from backpack to briefcase. A recent New York Times article by David Brooks, entitled "The Moral Bucket List," highlights for me the two sets of values that you will focus on as you move from backpack to briefcase. It reads, and I quote, "There are two sets of virtues, the resume virtues and the eulogy virtues. The resume virtues are the skills you bring to the marketplace. The eulogy virtues are the ones that are talked about at your funeral, whether you were kind, brave, honest, or faithful." Brooks continues, "We all know that the eulogy virtues are more important than the resume virtues. But our culture and our educational systems spend more time in teaching you the skills and strategies you need for career success than the qualities you need to radiate a sort of inner light. Many of us are clearer on how to build an external career than on how to build inner character." End quote. You are beginning your transition from backpack to briefcase with a unique advantage because you spent the last few years on a campus managed by the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales. Whether it was in your required classes, a religion or philosophy elective, or one of the many opportunities to nurture your spiritual side on campus, from daily mass to the new and extremely popular Salesian spirits, you have had the opportunity to develop your resume virtues alongside your eulogy virtues and achieve a balance that will be of great benefit as you face the challenges in your life. I have 4 pieces of advice. I believe these 4 pieces of advice have helped me maintain a balance between resume virtues and eulogy virtues. It gives me a little bit of backpack in a life that is sometimes dominated by briefcase. Here's my advice. First, read. I'm sure you're all excited to hear that because I know you've been doing quite a bit of reading these past few years. But believe me when I tell you that reading is a powerful skill that you need to continuously nurture. I tell our students at Nativity that they should read because reading gives you power. The power to deduce, the power to use your imagination, the power to form your own opinions. I like reading books, the kind with real pages and paper, but reading on a smartphone or tablet or computer screen can be just as effective, depending, of course, on the content. Tweets, texts, and status updates will keep you informed, but these bite-sized pieces of information will not exercise your minds in the same way as an article, essay, short story, novel, or nonfiction book. Reading is very different from watching. Reading develops your mind in a way that will empower you to achieve your dreams. My second piece of advice, volunteer. In other words, find ways to give back. You might accomplish this with your time, talent, or treasure. You might volunteer. You might serve on a nonprofit board. You might find yourself with disposable income and choose to give that to a charitable cause. I'll share an example from my life and a quick version of how I ended up standing here before you today. After college, I intended to become a teacher or work in a school. Life circumstances happened, and fast forward 7 or 8 years, I found myself working in the corporate sector, enjoying a certain level of success, but not feeling totally satisfied by my daily grind. In 2003, I heard about a school called, you guessed it, Nativity Prep. They needed evening tutors, so I signed up. My life was instantly changed, and the rest is history. It was volunteering that led me to discover my vocation, my calling. I stand here before you as the president of an organization that I would have never discovered if I hadn't volunteered that first night 12 years ago. My third piece of advice, live life passionately. Living life passionately is very much in line with the teachings of St. Francis de Sales. Give yourself fully to everything that you do. Be who you are and be that well. I'm sure you've heard that most famous of de Sales sayings many times, but it's great advice. I try to live every aspect of my life with passion, and I recommend you do the same. Fourth and finally, always be grateful. Nativity School theme this year is gratitude. George Herbert, a contemporary of St. Francis de Sales, said, "You have given us much, Lord. Give us one more thing, a grateful heart." Gratitude can completely shift your perspective from negative to positive. It's easy to get caught up in worries and anxieties and forget to be grateful. But once you shift to a perspective of gratitude, you see everything differently. As I prepared my remarks, I considered that I was speaking at the commencement of a Catholic college and that none of my advice was about prayer. But I believe that all of my pieces of advice are about praying. Whether you're reading, volunteering, living your life passionately, or being grateful, you are praying. Prayer, or meditation if you prefer, can be seamlessly woven into the fabric of your daily life, but do so with intention and conviction. My favorite Francis de Sales quote reads, "Half an hour's meditation each day is essential, except when you are too busy, then a full hour is needed." Finally, I want to exercise a piece of my own advice by expressing gratitude. I'm humbled to receive this honorary degree from the university, but I believe I share this degree with so many people who have made Nativity and my life what it is today. I believe it is the vision of the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales that has had and continues to have a profound effect on giving educational opportunities to the kind of young men served by Nativity Prep. I am grateful to so many Oblates who have guided me on my journey. I share this degree with all of the current and past trustees, faculty, and staff of Nativity Prep, as well as all of the students and graduates. I also want to thank my family, my parents, my sisters, my nieces and nephews, and most especially my wife, Grace, who is here today to support me, even though she is 8.5 months pregnant with our first child. All of these people have inspired the advice I share with you. Read, volunteer, live life passionately, and always be grateful. In closing, I want to dedicate these remarks to my unborn daughter, Olivia, who I will spend the next 22 years nurturing on her own journey from backpack to briefcase. Thank you.